U.S. Marines going rogue in Afghanistan. Delaram, Afghanistan, home to a dozen truck stops and a few hundred family farms bounded by miles and miles of foreboding desert. This tiny hamlet in southwestern Afghanistan is far from a strategic priority for senior officers at the International Military Headquarters in Kabul. One calls Delaram a day's drive from the nearest city, the end of the earth. Another deems the area unrelated to our core mission of defeating the Taliban by protecting Afghans in their cities and towns. But U.S. Marine commanders have a different view of the dusty, desolate landscape that surrounds Delaram. They see controlling this corner of remote Nimruz province as essential to promoting economic development and defending the more populated parts of southern Afghanistan. Marines are constructing a vast base on the outskirts of town that will have 2 airstrips, an advanced combat hospital, a post office, a large convenience store, rows and rows of housing trailers stretching as far as the eye can see. By this summer, more than 3,000 Marines, 1/10 of the additional troops authorized by President Obama in December, will be based here. With Obama's July 2011 deadline to begin reducing U.S. forces looming over the horizon, the Marines have opted or decided to wage the war in their own way. If we're going to succeed here, we have to experiment and take risks, said Brigadier General Lawence D. Nicholson, a top Marine commander in Afghanistan. Just doing what everyone else is doing isn't going to cut it. Creative and unorthodox. The Marines are pushing into previously ignored Taliban enclaves. They have set up a first-of-its-kind school to train police officers. They have brought in a Muslim chaplain to pray with local mullahs and deployed teams of female Marines to reach out to Afghan women. The Marine approach, creative, aggressive, at times unorthodox, has won some admirers within the military. The Marine emphasis on patrolling by foot and interacting with the population, which has helped to turn former insurgent strongholds along the Helmand River Valley into somewhat reasonably stable communities with thriving bazaars and functioning schools, is hailed as a model of how U.S. forces should implement counterinsurgency strategy. What happens when they leave? That would seem to be a very good question. And the Marines' methods and their insistence that they be given a degree of control not afforded to U.S. Army units also have riled many up the chain of command in Kabul and Washington, prompting some to refer to their area of operations in the south as Marinistan. They regard the expansion in Delaram and beyond as contrary to the population-centric approach embraced by General Stanley A. McChrystal, the U.S. and NATO commander in Afghanistan, and they are seeking to impose more control over the Marines. The U.S. ambassador in Kabul, Carl W. Eikenberry, recently noted that the international security force in Afghanistan feels as if it comprises 42 nations instead of 41 because the Marines act so independently from other U.S. forces. In other words, they just do whatever they want How is that good? We have better operational coherence with virtually all of our NATO allies than we have with the U.S. Marine Corps, said a senior Obama administration official involved in Afghanistan policy. Some senior officials at the White House, at the Pentagon, and in McChrystal's headquarters would rather have many of the 20,000 Marines who will be in Afghanistan by summer deploy around Kandahar, the country's second largest city, to assist in a U.S. campaign to take the area from Taliban control instead of concentrating in neighboring Helmand province and points west. According to an analysis conducted by the National Security Council, fewer than 1% of the country's population lives in the Marine area of operations, and they question whether a large operation that began last month to flush the Taliban out of Marja, a poor farming community in central Helmand, is the best use of Marine resources. Although it has unfolded with fewer than expected casualties and helped to generate a perception of momentum. Mission probably will tie up 2 Marine battalions and hundreds of Afghan security forces until at least the summer. What the hell are we doing? The senior official said. Why aren't all 20,000 Marines in the population belts around Kandahar city right now? It's the Taliban leader's Mullah Omar's capital. If you want to stuff it to Mullah Omar, you must make progress in Kandahar. If you want to communicate to the Taliban that there's no way that they're returning, you have to show progress in Kandahar. Till earlier this month, McChrystal lacked operational control over the Marines, which would have allowed him to move them to other parts of the country. That power rested with a 3-star Marine general at the U.S. Central Command. He and other senior Marine commanders insisted that Marines in Afghanistan have a different area of operations, effectively precluding them from being split up and sent to Kandahar, because they think it is essential the Marines are supported by Marine helicopters and logistics units, which are based in Helmand, instead of relying on the Army. So in other words, why should they work with the Army? Or any other? After concern about the arrangement reached the White House, General David H. Petraeus, who heads the Central Command, issued an order in early March giving McChrystal operational control of Marine forces in Afghanistan, according to senior defense officials. But the new authority vested in McChrystal, the product of extensive negotiations among military lawyers, still requires Marine approval for any plan to take infantry units from air and logistics support, which will limit his ability to move them, the defense official said. What good is that? Why is there not one general or commander overseeing the entire U.S. forces in Afghanistan? Why should they be split up like that? I would say that should be a very good question that somebody should be asking. Again, these are the end times, transition days. Mark chapter 13, verse 19. For in those days shall be affliction, such as was not from the beginning of the creation which God created unto this time, neither shall be. 20. And except that the Lord had shortened those days, No flesh should be saved, but for the elect's sake, whom he has chosen, he has shortened the days. And these are more signs.